Hello and welcome to the Canadian Condominium Institute podcast presented by the Grand River chapter. I'm your host, Michelle Dyer, and twice a month we speak with people from across the condominium industry in Southern Ontario. From condo residents to managers, lawyers, engineers, contractors, we aim to provide the community with tips, insights, and resources to better navigate your condominium life. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. And if you're not a member with us, make sure you visit our website at cci-grc.ca and register today. We'd like to take a moment to thank RLB LLP for this awesome podcast studio. And let's welcome Sara Hicks from MF Property Management. She's the vice president. And Mike Conway from Woodhouse Group. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. What we're going to talk about is emergencies. Dun, dun, dun. These are the, and what, okay, the first question I have for the property manager and for you, Mike, why do these things happen at 2 a.m.? Why is every property manager and every, restoration company getting phone calls at 2 a.m.? Why can't they happen at 2 p.m.?
I wish I knew.
I know why.
Tell me.
You're sleeping. Well, typically when they get any farther than, maybe the bathtub overflowing a bit or a sink going over or you're doing the laundry and the tub goes over, you hear it. You jump on it, you put some towels on it, you get a wet vac out, take a couple Canadian Tire fans if you got them, a couple, retail fans, and blow on it, mop it up, and you probably
You're
don't
done.
have a problem because it hasn't penetrated.
That's right. That's
So
right.
that's why it happens. It's the same when people go on to Florida for a week or two and they come home and you don't know what happened.
You don't know what happens.
It's an emergency.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask Sara about that because that happens a lot. Where people go on vacation and all of a sudden an incident's happen because they've left a tap on or the bathtub's overflowing. So when you go on vacation, you should really have somebody be checking.
That's right. Yeah. So we actually remind people, especially if you're going away for more than a weekend, you really should have somebody going through and doing just a visual check of the hot spots, which is the bathroom and the kitchen, the laundry room. Areas where water likes to escape, even check the AC. Like there's things that just, if there's water, it's going to find a way.
Water off.
Shut your water off. You recommend that, Mike?
Well, sure you can, unless you have equipment that's cool, water cooled. Then
then
you would have to be aware of
that.
But
there was
frozen pipe is a big one when people go away in the winter to go south. Sunny vacation. That's
townhouses, especially for those, right? You're better off.
Get a cold snap and then.
That's it. That's it. I remember once the line in the ice maker of the refrigerator leaking and nobody home for a month.
Right.
Yep.
And it wasn't until the neighbor below is like, why is my counter wet? Like, why is my wall wet? And when we cut it open all the way, and we're like, where is this coming from? Where is this coming? We cut open cupboards and walls, pulled the fridge out, and it was one little leak out of that line.
Right.
And drip, drip.
That's all it
drip.
takes.
That's all it took.
Yep.
Do you guys offer that when people are away as a property management company to check on their places?
We don't go
But
in.
there are some companies that offer that.
We don't go
Check
inside
on-
their units.
Yeah.
We'll tell them that you should. And some their own insurance asks them to also have somebody check if they're going to be
Absolutely.
away.
So you really should check with your insurance company when you're away because they may not cover you if something happens and if no one's been checking you, especially if you're gone longer than you said, like a weekend. So when is it a good time to call you, Mike? Like you just talked about a situation where, you see what's happening, the laundry room, the washer's leaking, you grab a couple of towels, you put some fans on it, you stop everything from happening. We wouldn't call you for that.
No, because you're on top of it.
Yeah.
I would say when you see water penetration or water leakage, coming in from flashings, coming in from the ceiling and whatnot. And we can, like most property managers will recommend preventative maintenance for condos, condo buildings, properties, and so on. So we have the tools, the moisture meters that are quite expensive and they're very good.
Yeah.
You
So
can
you
even
can
put it up
see-
to, you can even put them up to a pipe and it'll tell you if the pipe has less water flow in it. So you know there's a leak somewhere.
Oh, and
You
that's
see water,
interesting.
but you have no clue where it could be on the 10th floor, coming down, coming through the chutes and then coming in on
Yeah, the
You know,
path of least resistance.
let's say the second floor, because there's a path of least resistance, or there's a little bit of a grade like this there, so all of a sudden it finds the path of least resistance.
Yeah,
and it's inside unit 102.
Yeah, where where you
Right.
found it, where the origin may have been on the 8th floor.
Eave troughs, top of the roof, cleaning out the drains. Roofs are a big one. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been several in the Guelph area that have had, the roofing's not fixed, and they're waiting because it's what do they call it? Not a capital project, but it's part of your
Part of the reserve
Just
fund.
reserve fund,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And they just don't want to get to it. They do a lot of patchwork. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of times it's not somebody not going up there and getting into those, those top hat drains.
Yeah,
and cleaning them all out
Yep.
and shoveling snow at times up on the roof.
Yeah, those flat roofs especially
Right.
can be quite challenging if they're not, especially the older ones that aren't built
And they're
with
expensive.
with
That's
that.
that's a big cost, and nobody's looking at it and going, "Wow, what a beautiful flat roof you have there for $500,000 or $1 million." It's
Right.
like it's not aesthetically.
Yeah, I remember I had a building that had one of those flat roofs, and the flat roof wasn't installed, so it was part of Terrion, so we didn't have to use
Right.
your services,
Yep.
but it wasn't designed properly. So the water with the rain would come down, and instead of flowing into the drain, it was out. So it was running from the 4th floor all the way
Oh, yeah.
down to the basement
Yeah.
and through the common areas. And
Shoot.
the builder was on the hook. They had to come back. They had to fix the roof. They had to take open ceilings, cut open people's units. They had to do the hallways. They had to do everything. And all part of Terrion because that roof wasn't installed
Right.
properly. So would you come in and, so it's an older building. The roof is now leaking. We've had the roof fixed. So now you would come in and restore the units. Is that what Woodhouse would do?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
if it was an insurance claim, you'd have to be authorized for that. The
Okay.
homeowner. So we would do the emergency would be the first.
So yeah, so
Response.
I see a leak coming in through my ceiling light.
Right.
I immediately call Sara, my property manager, and go, my light's leaking.
Right.
And then what does Sara do?
So it kind of depends. We almost have
Right.
to figure out whether we'll ask, well, where is it? If it's the top floor in a townhouse, well, it's probably your roof. Is it raining outside?
Yeah.
Driving
You know,
rain.
yeah.
Driving rain.
Driving
sometimes.
rain
Yeah.
sometimes does it,
Yeah.
or is it a pipe, or is it something leaking from above? It's kind of process of elimination of
Right.
figuring out
Okay, so let's
what is it.
let's start with the townhouses because that's a little bit different than the buildings. So let's start with the townhouses when it comes to water. So I'm calling you because my main level, my living room light is now pouring down water. I go upstairs. I don't know. What do I do? Where's it coming from? So that's, like you said, the process of elimination. So you and I will talk on the phone. So your question to me is, okay, could it be your bathtub? Could it be your bath? So the first thing is usually the bathroom or the number one when I was running townhouses, en suites.
Yeah.
En suites, people
Right.
don't pay attention to en suites like they do the general bathroom because
Yes.
more people use that general bathroom than the en suite.
That's right. Or we ask if they've had recent plumbing work, because unfortunately,
Right.
people don't always hire, Uncle Bob while he knows how to install a toilet. All right, well,
Did Uncle
was
Bob?
was he licensed? Or during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, people decided to hop on bidets.
Yes.
And I'll just buy the parts on Amazon.
Silly.
And
No.
you don't know how many leaks we had from
Wow.
people just haphazardly installing them, thinking they could. And there are easy ones you could just attach to your toilet, but thinking they can just.
No.
Yeah, new stacked townhomes leaking
No.
down. Oh yeah, and
Oh
it's
my
like, oh
goodness.
no, who would have thought of this scenario?
Oh my, everybody got into the bidet thing.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody in Europe has a bidet. It's so true. Everybody in Europe has a bidet.
Yeah, I mean,
all seriously, my relatives in Italy don't understand why we don't have one. Like
Yeah.
that is so gross. Like,
I haven't had the pleasure.
yeah, of a bidet. Oh, you should. It's quite invigorating actually.
this is turning into an ad.
Exactly.
But I can see why people would have thought this would be a good
Sure.
idea.
Sure, and
Because they were
then-
so worried about not having TP, right? So,
Right.
like,
So,
that is
so silly, eh?
I know,
well,
but
when we
It
look
was
back
serious.
on it, it was silly.
Yeah.
Like, it was silly now, but back then,
Yeah.
not so silly. So people would install these things.
Yes.
What, they'd read the instructions from Amazon and do it themselves because you
Right.
couldn't get a plumber.
No, and so there's ones, I don't know why I know so much about them. There's ones that are just cold water that you can just attach to your toilet easily. But if you want the warm water sprayed, that means more plumbing work. And so there were people that flooded.
I'd
their
want the warm
units.
water.
Oh my stars! Have
Yeah.
you seen a flood from one of these things?
I
yet?
have
No,
not
yet?
actually. That's not it. We have a lot in the what do you call it there? Your diary. We have a lot in the diary.
Yeah.
But not that one yet.
Not that one yet.
Not that I know of. Maybe.
You might, you may have. Who knows? Okay, so that went off the rails real
Yeah.
quick. Wow, I'm still on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Where would you put a bidet in your little
They
condo
attached
bathroom?
it to their toilets in some way.
That's
Some of
crazy.
them. Yeah.
Okay, so they've
Yeah.
had recent plumbing work.
Yeah.
So you've sussed out where this is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So in a townhouse, would you call Woodhouse to come in and restore, or would that be up to the owner to do? Because a
Yeah.
townhouse is very different than an apartment,
Yeah.
so we have to kind of
Yeah.
isolate that. So how would you handle that?
Yeah, so again, it's one of those, it depends. So there's ones where it's like a really minor leak. They're seeing a little bit of bubbling on drywall.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's from the roof.
Right.
Then in
Okay.
that case, we'll usually start with the roofer because we don't really want,
Yes.
it's kind of like you want to fix this little entry.
Yeah,
and then,
like where's it coming from first?
Yeah, and then often then the inside is up to the owner.
Got it.
Depending on where the unit boundary is, maybe the
Yeah.
condo will go into an attic if necessary. But
Yeah.
it's like, well, we're not going to paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it depends. But then there's been other ones in a townhouse where we can't tell if it's the brick, if it's from a window, whatever. And I've called Woodhouse to say, listen, we can't figure out where the heck the water's coming from.
Yeah,
So it's
so-
investigative
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point.
So and then so you come in to investigate. So this is where you bring your machinery, your
Yeah,
little
bring all the
your-
equipment
yeah.
in and check the walls, check in the structural, check the piping, check the flashing, go up to the roof if they haven't found it. Sometimes you find something that even the roofer didn't find.
Yeah.
The equipment really works well. So
Yeah, so you can see kind of where it's all.
and then you try to fix that
Yeah,
or you do preventative measures.
yeah,
Drain pipes.
yeah. They're
mean,
clogged.
there's-
Your
right.
eaves clogged. You gotta
Yep,
clean
eaves
them
clogged,
out.
yeah.
Whatever.
It's
yeah.
hard when it's a mystery water leak that only happens
when it
within
rains.
when it rains or mystery circumstances.
Yeah,
Old-
those are tough.
And it's like
old
a
coppers,
certain
it could be a
rain.
pinhole.
Yeah, that it's like, okay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The pinholes I remember in an old stacked, and I say older. It was probably 30 years old. Stacked townhouse, and oh my stars and bars! It had the copper piping.
Right.
And you wouldn't know that in behind that wall, it was because their stacks were behind their kitchens, and they were all in the same wall. So one would be leaking, and you wouldn't know until all of a sudden the wall would be moist, and by that point,
Right.
you're pulling out mold. Like
Yeah.
You're pulling out like it was just something, and cupboards and levels. Like they had the both levels would be coming out. The flooring would be coming out
Right.
because that pinhole was so hard to detect. When you're not looking for, when no one's complaining about water coming in. There was no water ingress until the wall is wet.
Yeah.
Like until it's reached a point of saturation and now the wall is expanding.
And mold's not always covered in insurance either.
Yeah, and that's
Some of them will if
seepage.
it's
yeah.
it's unseen behind walls and that sometimes, but they're
Yeah.
getting pretty tight
So-
about it.
When you say to if you're covered under insurance, like you had mentioned that that if they were covered by insurance, then you could come in. If
Right.
your services were covered, is that what you're talking about?
No,
or just
if
generally?
they have coverage in their policies.
Oh,
all
okay,
that
got
is,
it.
Yeah.
Got it.
We work with all insurance companies, and Intact being
Yeah.
probably 90 or 80% of the coverage in condos and
Yeah.
and high rises and such.
Yeah.
We're on their reliable list, so we have no problem when we go into their jobs.
Gotcha. So that's townhouses. So those are a little bit sketchy in the sense that you never know where the leak's going to come from, especially when like the one-offs, like the blowing, driving rain that you don't know where the heck it came from, or then you find out that somebody left their window open and didn't realize it, and that's where
Right.
the blowing dry, Let's talk about the apartment condos, because they can be a little bit more tricky, because we just talked about where you could have a leak on the 8th floor, but you have no idea
Where it's coming from.
until, like, and then the 3rd floor is calling saying I have a leak, and you're like going to the 4th floor and the 5th floor, and like, where is this coming from?
Right.
And does your machine cover? How do you go through that? Like, do you knock on every door and just?
Yep. You go
Wow.
wherever you think it's going to be and get permission to get in. You have a property manager with you, or super or concierge, whoever has access to them, and you start knocking on doors. You got to find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only, I mean, you do sometimes have condo owners or renters that are a little bit difficult to get in, or they're not home, or
Yeah.
you go there and they say, we can't come in right now
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
whatever
that's-
reason.
That can be a challenge, right, Sarah? Like,
Yeah, entry can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that.
Notice.
Like in the event of an emergency, we can enter
Right.
a
Without
unit.
permission.
Without
Yes.
permission.
That's right.
That's right. And even some of them don't think we can enter even with with notice, but we can. And again, you're living in a building, and this is especially when it's getting ahead of a leak that could be, the
could be
amount of damage.
catastrophic.
It could be catastrophic damage.
it could be.
So it is difficult when there's people that are a bit ornery about you looking for a leak. They think, oh, it's not me. It's like, well, sometimes
Right.
you might not even be
You
aware
don't-
of what
you
the
don't
heck,
know.
where it's coming from.
Well, that's it,
right. Sometimes
right.
it's in between units, especially
You
with
see
toilets.
that a lot,
Like
yeah.
you're like, okay,
For sure it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
in
you see that a
between.
lot. Yeah.
So
And that's tough. That's tough. Like, you as an owner or a resident, you're not going to see that. Like, you can investigate. What are you going to do? Cut your own wall open? You can go ahead, but guess what? Now you're on the hook. Like, you're better to have
The
a
moisture meter will
professional-
find a lot of that.
Yeah, without even
Yeah.
having to cut anything
It will
open.
tell you where it's up to 60 or 70% moisture in it, and typically all walls are up to 15 or 20%. So once you get in a higher percentage of moisture in a dry wall or a cavity or whatever, then you know there's something going on there.
So is that when you cut open?
We have to ask the company. So that's just
No, but so
right.
you come to
is it
Sarah
gonna be
and
covered?
you say,
Is it?
yeah.
Are
So
they
you come
gonna-
to Sarah and say, okay, this wall has 70% water. Do you want us to?
Sure.
How do you want us to do? Like, and so do you start with a little hole and
Yeah,
kind of do a
little
little
holes.
camera
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah.
or? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So you're not just cutting open walls, going, oh
Right,
look.
right. Yeah.
we
Yeah,
try
we're
to
not
keep-
a rip and tear
No.
company,
No,
so
okay.
we try to dry first, cut second.
Okay. So would you poke a hole in just to see what's going on, or would you?
Yep.
Yeah, and then
Yep.
go
then
from
you
there.
just drywall it up and,
And then you
match
patch
the
it up.
paint.
And would you?
Yeah.
You would do
Yeah,
that?
we do
Yeah,
all
you do all
that.
that
Yeah, for
service.
sure.
Yeah.
I think communication is the big thing
That's
during
huge.
emergencies, because people are at their worst when they're freaking out, which I get it, so am I. And sometimes people are not rational, and the last thing they want to be thinking about is costs and all of this. So
Yeah.
it's very clear, like we have to be as clear as possible in communication and empathetic. People
Right.
are, they don't know what's going on, and they're worrying about costs and all of that.
Yeah.
And then they're thinking about the disruption,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with my guys, I try. My project manager really good with standard unit definition, and
Yeah.
that's a whole.
We're not going to get into that. That's a
won't
whole
get
other
into standard
episode.
unit
If you want to
definition.
know what standard definition is and
It's
standard
gone.
unit bylaw, you can go back in previous episodes
Right.
with me and Stephanie Sutherland, and you can find out what all that is.
Right.
So, but yeah, it gets really complicated.
Yeah. So for me, communication. What Sarah
Yeah.
said, communication's huge. Project managers that I have, I'm on them all the time about giving a synopsis, whether it's at the end of the week or it's every 2 weeks, or depending on the job.
Yeah.
To let the property manager know what's going on, because they get a call on the weekend or they get a call early Monday morning.
Of course.
At least they can have some information on what's going on. They got tons of units to manage.
Yeah.
So they can't be on site for, every occasion all the time whenever we show up. So
Right.
we need to be their eyes and ears. And doing a little Coles notes, letting them know, makes them look a lot better too when somebody asks them. You can't be everywhere, so
Yeah.
you get a Coles note from my guys to let you know this is what's going on. We're going in. We've made arrangements to go in on Friday. We'll start the flooring or the drywall or whatever's going on, and just give them the skinny, so to speak.
But
Right?
even as a property manager, that would be, as a former property manager, that for me would have been amazing to have that
Right.
report, not only to answer the owners that call, but to give that information to the board of directors when you're sitting in the next meeting to say, this is what happened, this is how the project proceeded, this is what we needed to do, and this is what it's going to
Right.
cost the condominium, this is what it's going to cost the owner, and this is how we need to move forward. And I'll give you a prime example. Was we had a building that, without question, they had the old, and Mike, you probably know about these, on the valves, the water heater valves, the old ones that they were recalled at one point and they were popping.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and we had a building, and the owners were told, I couldn't tell you how many, because they were
Replace
owner
them.
responsibility, so the condo couldn't do anything. We don't know how many times we said, how many notices we sent out, how many checks, to the point that they were firing, these valves were bursting and flooding 3 or 4 units. Like it would go this way and then down. So like units were being flooded like crazy, to the point that the board got real tired of it. And I think we actually had Woodhouse come in at one point, and then every fire check with the smoke alarms, you know how they have to do the annual fire,
detectors, yeah.
we checked the valves too. And if you didn't have a change of valve, we changed it. We had a plumber
Oh, wow.
right there and then, and they changed out the valve
Yep.
for you and charged you
For
back.
sure.
Yep.
Because the amount of floods we had and how much we had to cut out walls and cut out the lobby and repaint and redo the flooring and was ridiculous.
Proactive preventative maintenance.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And do you do that too? Does Woodhouse do that
Well,
part? Yeah.
we wouldn't do the hot
No.
water heaters. Just gets the city does it. I mean, it's not even expensive to get a hot water heater from the city. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no,
12
they were I don't know if it was the hot water heater, but it was something that the
Right.
owners were responsible for to do and that they
Yeah,
owned.
plumber would do that.
Yeah. So
Plumber.
yeah, we'd have a plumber come in and do that.
I mean, we
so.
can sub a plumber out, but for
Yeah.
single trade like that, property
You're better
managers
off
better
to-
go off to one of their
Yeah,
vendors and
exactly.
ABC
So
plumbing.
if you know what you need to do for the restoration. So you know that you've had this massive flood, and we're talking specifically floods right now because there are other emergencies and other urgent matters
Right.
that you take care of, but specifically for floods. So you know what you need to do. You know you found the source. So you find the source of the leak being a copper pipe with a pinhole. Are you fixing that, or are you calling Sarah and saying, "Hey, it's a copper pipe with a pinhole. What do you want us to do?"
Well, we're fixing it. It might be somebody that we could refer MF to and say, hey, you just need the basement guy
Yeah,
that does foundation cracks,
yeah.
crack specialist, or
Yeah,
wise
yeah,
cracks,
yeah,
or
or
whatever.
whoever,
I shouldn't
yeah,
be
whoever.
giving any plugs here
That's
today.
okay. Some of them are members.
plugs.
That's okay.
But
That's
you know,
all right.
you can
Yeah.
call them for a single source. But typically, that kind of restoration is included in what we do.
Okay.
But we
so-
don't have a problem if somebody thinks that they can just do it with the crack specialist and fix it, and we walk away after we've dried it and sucked it
Yeah.
up, whether it's sewage or
No,
whatever.
I
Yeah.
guess I'm asking is, are you a one-stop shop?
We are. We can
So
do
Sarah
everything.
can call you and
Yes.
say, "Hey, this is what's happening. I don't know
Yes.
where the leak's coming from. Come in, look at it, fix it, get it done. Send me the bill."
We are.
And that's very
But we
handy.
try to be a good partner where if
Yeah.
you don't need a management fee on it,
Yeah.
we advise qualified advice from a good contractor, right? That's what we look at.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really handy because people
Right.
want that. Of course, they want to know what is happening with
Right.
their home, who's
Yeah.
doing it. And sometimes for the condo, we have to decide whether to put in an insurance claim or not.
Yeah.
And so when we, some companies will take months and months and months to give you an estimate, or you don't know what's going on. It's like, well, we need to know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And less condos are putting through insurance claims now. It's just not worth it anymore.
Well, no, not with your deductible being
It's
so
not
huge.
no,
right?
and condos are high risk now.
Yeah.
Like there's
Several
less and
are.
less companies that want to insure condos.
Yep.
It's not the
Premiums
subject,
are
but
Yeah.
it's,
There is-
up to
It's-
25-30%.
yeah.
Yep, and there is an
It's
insurance
massive.
episode that you
Great.
can, if you go back in the podcast, there's an insurance episode that we talk about.
It's becoming critical.
It is becoming
yeah.
critical.
Even with emergencies that you say, oh yeah, we'll put it through insurance. Now it's like, no, we're eating this.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and if you don't, more and more as you see, if you put it through insurance, the next time you
Oh.
get the insurance renewal,
Oh
yeah, you're talking, instead of that 10% increase or 15% increase, you could be 20, 30, 40% increase.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no hesitation anymore because condos are considered high risk now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it's a mix of, yes, you could do the preventative, but you can't foresee the people whose fish tank explodes.
Oh, right.
And the students leave things running and all of these, the pots on the stove. Like you can't do anything about that. So the more people, more problems, unfortunately.
That's it.
And or seniors that shouldn't be alone in their
Yep.
units
Yep.
and they're forgetting things. Like all the preventative
Maintenance
maintenance
is- in
that's
the world
one
isn't gonna-
important side, but that doesn't help just life.
Yeah, and
right?
I had one. I'll never forget this flood. Oh my God! For the rest of my life, I'll never forget this flood. An owner down below calls. My walls are leaking.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my goodness! What do you mean your walls
Your
are
walls.
leaking? Like, no, really, my walls are leaking.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening? So I go running over. Can't find the. I was gonna get the super to do it, but I couldn't find the super. So I go running over to look at this myself. Okay, what do you mean your walls are leaking? Open. Knock on the door. They open it up. Literally, their hallway walls are leaking. There's water in their whole, and it's coming down, and it looks like a waterfall. It looks like literal waterfall happening in their hallway. I'm like, what the heck? Go upstairs, knock on the door. No answer, no answer. Got the key, had the master, open the door. Hello, Michelle Dyer, MF Property Management, coming in. We're investigating a leak. Open the door. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
What was it?
They had put a Brita on the counter, took the tap, put the tap in the Brita,
And just-
turned on the tap to fill the Brita, and left for work.
Oh no.
The unit above.
And it was running over so much. They had left it.
Wow.
And it was
That's a
running
lot.
over so much that the walls below were, and there was I was stepping in water.
The walls
Like,
were ballooning
the
out.
walls
right?
were leaking. Literally, it was coming down in between the two units, and literally into there. I walked in and I stepped in the kitchen to a pile of water. I'm like, how could this have happened? They must have left it for hours.
That must have been that's a lot of
for
water.
Like
sure.
it was in their living room. It was in the unit below. Like how crazy is that? But there's that human nature. And I know exactly what happened. She was trying. Oh shoot! I'll fill this up now.
sure.
I probably filled her water bottle to go to work. I'll fill this up now. I'm gonna get going. And you know those Britas. You stick that tap in there. You're not hearing it. You're not hearing it fill.
Yeah.
And got a call for work. Oh yeah. Okay. Lock the door. Here I go. And totally forgetting about it.
We used to get a lot of them. What are those filters underneath your sink too? Osmosis.
The osmosis ones.
Right. And
Yep.
they weren't. A lot of times people did it themselves
Yes.
because it says right on the kit you can do it
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
So just-
Easily installed.
Next thing you know,
yeah.
it's turned off and it's
Backing
you don't know,
up.
you don't see it. It's in the cupboards.
Yeah.
Till you see it.
Until you
and
see
a lot
it.
of times they see it downstairs.
Down
first
the unit.
in a high rise.
That's it.
Right.
We've seen some pretty massive floods in high rises that from burst pipes to all sorts of stuff. But let's talk a little bit about hoarding, because that seems to be a challenge, and it's a challenge not only in townhouse, and I don't want to get into the townhouse side because that's a lot more convoluted. In the sense of you have less control in a townhouse as you would in a apartment, because apartments, the structure it's a structural thing. So I know in townhouses it could be too, but if they're hoarding in their garage, it takes a little bit longer to
Right.
go through
Less
the process.
exposure.
There's
Right.
less exposure, whereas in an apartment, quickly.
The odor
Right.
as well.
Yeah, right.
Clues you in
So-
sometimes.
Unless they're clean hoarders.
Yes.
I mean, there's lots that are very clean, but they have a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and then eventually it gets away on them.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that. So what do you mean by clean hoarders? Because you only see the ones on TV. Like, it sounds odd, but you only see the ones on TV. You only see the ones that are not.
I know you think pets and garbage, but
Right.
that's not all.
That's
of them.
not, no.
Right.
Three coolers they bought because they were on sale,
Right.
and they buy. They're on the shopping network all the time.
Yeah,
buy.
yeah.
Store. Condos only 800 square feet.
Yeah, 1,000 square feet. Yeah.
So there's lots
So
smaller,
now,
there's
yeah,
lots
where are
bigger.
you putting those 4 frying pans?
They
and where are you
become
putting those-
hazards.
Yeah, because they have to now navigate
Trip and
around
falls. Older people.
it. Trip
Yeah.
and falls, for sure. So the clean ones, how do you handle that? Because, I'll let Sarah talk. Because how do you know if it
Yeah.
doesn't smell or it's not?
Yeah.
You're
so-
not getting that. Like until you get the weight. I don't know. Like how does
Yeah. So usually we're alerted if we have to go into the unit. So it's the fire. Usually it's the fire testing,
Yeah.
or maybe something else will bring the super or somebody into the unit, and that's where they'll notice. And we often like to bring in the fire department because they will come in, and I've gone into units with them, and they're very excellent about pointing things out. Now, they only look at the fire side. So say if it was an odor issue, they're not going to be telling somebody to clean up dog waste or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be, okay, well, your surfaces, like your ovens and those sorts of things, those need to be clear.
Yes.
They actually have, I can't remember what it is, a certain height.
3 feet, I think.
Is it 3 feet of height that to them
34
it's
inches.
okay?
Something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah. So if it goes beyond that becomes a hazard.
What do you mean, like 3 feet
Of
on your
stuff
on your like
on the ground.
Like if you have an electrical panel, let's say,
Yeah.
it has to be clear below it.
Yeah.
by 3 feet?
Right.
So it
I
has to
think
be-
it's somewhere around.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on
No,
that.
no, yeah, but around. So
they
Yeah.
actually have a height where they like look out for. So to you and me, that might be way too much, but
Yeah.
to them, it's like, well,
Code.
it's still code, so it's permitted. Someone could exit the unit.
Yeah.
They'll look at the balcony if there's a balcony of how much
Right.
stuff is stored on
Yeah,
there.
that's
the
frightening.
smoke detectors,
Yeah.
of course, they'll look at that. That's a good first step because that kind of gets the ball rolling of when we send them a letter and say, listen, this is starting to become an issue.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Or if somebody's in like a health issue and they can't, that the ambulance can't get in there.
Yeah. So that could potentially be a hazard to their health, right? Like
Right.
in a
And you can't get to them to save them.
That's it. So that's the clean side. And as a former property manager, I wish that there was that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's more of a hazardous material where
Yeah.
dog waste, trash, not clean, that sort of thing. So does Woodhouse, like, will you come in hazmat suits and do the
We
whole-
will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do
Okay.
bio cleanups, methamphetamine,
Yeah,
fentanyl,
yeah.
cadaver cleanup after the coroner's been there and it's been cleared.
Yeah. Okay. So you do
Sharps,
Yeah.
mold. Yeah.
Okay. So you do that.
Contents.
So, all right. That's what I was wondering. So
Contents,
would you come
yeah.
in and clean out all the content?
Yeah, label
and-
everything, but I mean, there's authorization for that type of stuff as well. So
Yeah,
it's
and this
it's
is where it-
sensitive.
That's where it
Yeah.
gets sticky.
Family members sometimes have to
Right.
get involved.
Right.
Right.
So, what about when it is the family?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how, as a property manager, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think it is difficult because, as Mike said, it's sensitive. Hoarding is a mental health issue. It's classified as its
Yes,
own
it
mental
is.
health issue.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we don't know, or the super doesn't know enough to say, yeah, I'm going to diagnose this person with hoarding. Like, you don't always
No, yeah.
know. And everybody's different. There's some people that are very aggressive about it. Like, they really don't want you in there.
Yeah.
There's others that are lovely and they just
Yep.
lost their way and they've lost track and they feel really bad.
Yeah.
And it's, they feel
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, I don't, or they don't have anybody to help them, or
Yep.
they're embarrassed. And
Yeah.
they don't want to ask family for
Yep.
help.
Right.
And so it's navigating all these things. Because, we like to communicate with them first, like they're an adult, and we want to say, okay, listen, this is coming to our attention, and we keep it all very much of just, this is becoming a structural problem, or this is becoming a nuisance to your neighbors,
Yeah.
or these
Or a
sorts
health
of
and
things.
safety
It's
issue.
health and safety, fire,
Yeah.
what have you, the deadline to address it. And then, as time goes by, if it's not addressed, then that's when, we have someone like Woodhouse that can come in, communicate it.
Right.
And then sometimes we do have to contact their
Regional.
emergency contact.
Right.
Yeah, and get that.
Regional
get
health.
help.
Regional health,
to
yeah.
come out and talk to them.
Yeah. So
They're the experts at the mental health issue side
yeah,
of it for sure.
For sure. So Mike, when Woodhouse comes in, are you met with resistance, or is that by that point?
Not
it's
really
kind of-
no.
It's already been kind of taken care of.
I
And
shouldn't say that. It does happen. Sometimes
Yeah.
people try to get back into their units, and even after a fire,
Yeah.
don't want you to be in there. There's some pretty serious situations that the project managers have to deal with. I have some really good ones. You're
Yeah.
going to have some project managers that somebody go, whoa, that's not, like, I'm not going in there. The guy's got tools. He's acting up.
Yeah.
He's violent. He's
Yeah.
punched holes all in the walls and stuff
Yeah.
like that because he doesn't agree with the insurance company, or he wants
Whatever,
to get
yeah.
his guy in to fix it. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, The board's not agreeing to that.
Right. So you would call Sarah at that point and say, hey, this is where we're at.
And we call a lawyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why,
really.
that's why
the lawyer, the
CCI is
sheriff,
so
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You have your
Yeah.
connections.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
thing, is that's why
totally.
you have
We have our partners.
the partners that we have.
Yeah,
right,
and
is
we
to
can
help.
assure the board that we'll deal with this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you trust us, then we'll kind of put our feelers out and we'll call the appropriate people, because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's-
this is not just a
It's above pay.
simple.
Yeah.
It's above our
It
expertise.
It's
goes
above
above
our-
and beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you come in to do the remediation on let's say a hoarding, so you come in with your hazmat and like you dispose of everything that you're supposed to dispose of in the way that you're supposed to dispose of
Right.
it.
You
I
would take
assume.
pictures of everything.
This is where I was going.
Record
Yeah.
everything.
That's where I
Photos
was
are
going.
great.
Yeah.
Communication with the property manager. If it has to be the family member and not the person in the unit,
Yeah.
you communicate with them. But we package everything for the property manager. They
Oh.
would present most times to the family.
Okay. So like what if you had
So we're working for them, so everything goes to them, and then
Yeah.
if they want us to, we do.
Yeah.
But it's for them to present.
So you're cleaning out a hoarding case, and this is just, it's interesting, and this is just a question that, it's a situation that, believe it or not, I had read about. So it's a hoarding case, but you find a jewelry case. And in the jewelry case, you find a diamond ring, and you find this, and you find that, where the hoarder didn't even know that
Right.
was there. So how would you go to cover your butt to make sure that you take pictures of all of that?
Right.
And you put it together and you label it and you give it to Sarah? Or does it go in some storage facility until the owner comes? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. If it's something valuable, communication again.
Yeah.
And we decide it's labeled. Every item is inside that would be identified.
Yeah.
Marked, and then we can hold it because we have contents and we have lock secure.
That's what I was
contents.
wondering. Yeah.
We have air storage facility. We have storage facilities right in our warehouse.
Right.
And then we have another one downtown Kitchener that we have the bins.
Yeah.
Depends on the level of security that it needs as to where it goes.
Yeah.
Labeled and then it put into the PSA at work, and we
But you
file
ditch the
everything.
trash, right? Like if there's trash, or do you
have
have to
let 'em
label
know.
that?
You have to let the insurance
people have-
company or the person know.
Yeah.
The after has to be.
Like even a newspaper, pile of newspapers. You see that quite often. Pile of newspapers. So you would take the pile of newspapers and put it somewhere. Like I'm not
yeah.
joking. I'm really trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
understand.
because we had one where they had hundreds of lottery tickets.
Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And they
remember
were like,
that.
don't throw those
Right.
out. So the company actually had to bag them, and they didn't throw them out with the, soggy food stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was
Yes.
trash because that couldn't be salvaged. But they actually,
cover yourself all the time.
'cause they were-
Pictures.
pictures.
Label.
Yeah.
magazines.
Even if you threw it out, and I mean, newspapers and garbage, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty standard.
There wouldn't be any scolding coming back.
Yeah.
Or any kind of retribution and something like that.
Well,
where
'cause you
you'd
would
have to
assume that
repay
that's-
anything.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
some things you're like, oh no,
Right.
that's something to them. So you got
So
to be
you
careful.
got to be careful what you throw out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's great. And then you come in, so you've got rid of everything. Then you have to remediate.
Right.
Like, we're talking walls and stuff here, right? Like, how
Yeah.
does that all work? You pull walls out. Like, do you talk to Sarah? Do you say, okay, we have to yank this wall?
Typically, you try just to go above baseboard 2 feet at the most.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to go higher, but try not to.
So what do you mean 2 feet at the most? You cut out the 2
Cut
feet.
out and then dry up inside, and then you replace it after.
You dry up inside.
Well, that's where the water probably.
No,
came
I'm
out.
not talking water. I'm talking hoarding
Oh,
cases.
sorry. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Like, so a hoarding case, what would you do? Because now you've got an odor. Like, do you take the walls out? Do you reframe? What do you do?
Well, it would depend how bad it is. We have
Yeah.
deodorizing machines that we can use.
Oh,
We
okay.
have different chemicals, compounds that
Yeah.
you can use to break it down
Okay.
and then take it out.
Like an enzyme
Whether-
kind
yep,
of thing.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, God.
It's probably case by case.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's like mold-free paints that you can use now as well, and
Yeah.
in wet areas, and
You do
bacteria.
mold remediation as
Yep,
well.
Mold removal. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get off the hoarding thing now because that's gross. But let's go. No, because it can be really like not pleasant, right?
When you're
like,
talking about the garbage before, just to
Yeah.
step back, we have to, if it's an insurance claim, we definitely have to identify it because it takes time to take care of it and get it out and dispose of it. There's disposal fees, everything.
Oh, well,
And if you don't label it for the insurance company, the adjuster's not gonna pay you for that.
Gotcha.
So everything. Right down to
has
a pair of gloves,
Yeah.
plastic gloves. You have
Yeah.
to identify all the items that you use.
Wow.
And, sorry.
That could be really laboring.
Oh, it's very laborious.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
That's your project manager? Like
Well, we have a contents guy with them. We're lucky that way because we have the resources to have guys that actually specifically take care of that. We have a contents project manager. So Peter's excellent. He's been like 20 years. Great guy.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's talk about mold remediation because we didn't kind of touch upon that with the leaking. So there are options for mold remediation. And now people are getting the gist of this, right? We're talking about all the emergencies that can happen in a condo and all of the things that you need to do. So if you have to think about these things when you move into a condo as well, that you are at the mercy of your neighbors. And you, as a potential owner, have to think about whether or not you would be suited for a condo based on some of the habits, right? Like if you're away a lot, maybe a condo would be suited to you as long as you have somebody checking so that, leaks and that sort of thing. So mold remediation. So we discovered the leak, we fixed the leak, everything's good. Now the wall is moldy. So are there options for that, or is the wall just got to come out and we have to start all over?
Typically take it out.
Yeah.
There are some surfaces that you can get, like surface mold. Like a lot of the new builds now have mold growing on the windows because they're so airtight.
They are so airtight. So what do you do?
The windows already got water coming out because they're so airtight.
Because there was this whole article years ago about black mold and it's going to kill us.
So black mold is
right.
All mold is dark,
like,
pretty much. You very rarely, unless you're out in a tropical forest, find mold. It's black mold. Who was the one that? What's her name? That was on Three's Company. Was a big one that did that. What was the blonde hair girl?
Oh, Suzanne Summers.
She did a huge thing on black mold and made a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
So it was the fear of black mold. People call me still to this day. We have black mold.
We get that too.
Yeah,
you do.
Emails of their window with the mold.
Yeah,
it's gone through dirt and walls and up through the windowsills. It's all dirty. It's gonna come down dark.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the window well. So let's talk about the window. So the new condos, I know, they're so airtight and sealed. It is crazy how airtight they are.
And the windows get the condensation, and the windows are leaking.
No.
They're not leaking.
No.
You know how many we've had of those come out at 3 a.m. in the morning because they call direct.
Right.
Yeah.
They come out and it's like,
But it's not.
We like pictures. Sometimes if they send us a picture and if we're kind of suspect of that they're
window
a little
leaking.
bit, people get worked up quick. So I mean, they don't want to flood. They
No,
don't want it to go flood. Preventative maintenance again. Wipe your windows down.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm wondering. So if I've read this thing so many
Put
times.
a humidifier
you
in.
just take a little bit of bleach and you wipe it down, it'll go away. Is that true?
Bleach isn't good for it. Like a palm olive would be better.
Like a dish soap.
Yeah, and there's also like Canadian Tire. I shouldn't be saying it, taking away my business. Canadian Tire has the mold offs and different stuff like that.
So
that will work for that
particular
surface
thing.
mold that's wipeable.
Yeah, it's because the condensation in the apartment is so. Like you've had the heat on for all of December, and the moisture isn't able to get out. Like you really should open your window once.
People they're cooking and they have plants and there's people heavy breathing. I don't know all these things.
Those portable humidifiers are decent too. Don't hook it up to your furnace though.
Yeah.
It goes all through and it
cause
goes
a problem.
in spots you don't know. It's going up into your attic and
But if
whatnot.
you're in a condo and you're cooking a big meal like a turkey dinner in December, for
windows
the
are
love
gonna
of
be
for the love of all that is holy, just open them a smidge. That's all you need to do. Run your fans in your bathroom. Run your fans in the kitchen.
Patio door or whatever. If you don't have windows that open, right?
Like open those do what you need to do. But as soon as you see that, then take a little bit of dish soap or a little bit of mold off and away you go. Now, it's when it gets around the windows and up into the curtains and behind the thing and it's going in, wait a minute, it's now in the hallway and it's now in the thing and it's dripping down the walls and now we need to talk.
Right.
Like it's now extended past.
Right, so you need a remediation.
So
then
now
you need
a
a removal. I mean, we have products where we have guys, a lot of it's elbow grease.
Yeah.
A lot of
for
it's
sure.
getting rid of it. And if it's really bad,
cut it
then
out.
you have to cut it out. But a lot of times it's up in the roof, in the frame, and that's pretty expensive. So we try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
There are some good products out there.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of labor.
Yeah.
And they have to suit up.
Yeah.
Most mold wouldn't bother a lot of people, but if you have respiratory or you have very sensitive skins,
You need
then
to.
mold, it's not regulated, so it's
Yeah. But it's best that you do that anyway.
Right.
Really. If you're working with any chemical,
sure.
like you really, or
Yeah,
restoration, if you hired a restoration company and they're not coming in with at least a little bit of PPV or PPC, like preventative, maintenance, like preventative gear.
Yeah.
There's units that I wish I were something. 'Cause
PPE,
Right?
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And
Just
now
do it.
post-COVID, it's like
Just
it
do
seems just. But yeah, there's ones that we would pop into, and they would have, like the cat pee, like the ammonia smell.
Yeah.
So strong, like you feel physically ill.
Yeah.
Or ones where things have happened and there's blood, or there's
Yeah.
cockroaches,
Yeah.
bed bugs. Like
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know if I should
Feces.
just be casually strolling in here because you don't know
No.
what you're taking back with you.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well,
right?
that's it.
You know?
And that's what happens. And as remediation or as a property manager, you should be taking those precautions at I think at all times. Even just going into, somebody mentioned about going into units.
We've cut back on that big time.
Yeah, you don't go in there alone. It's just a safety feature and a health and safety feature, right? So your guys don't do that. They don't go in by themselves when they do a remediation, do they?
Typically,
into the
you
unit?
always
No.
have a guy, a project manager might go in and inspect.
Yeah.
Might have
But if you're
property
being
manager
called
with
in,
them.
chances are the owner, the resident is away from there.
Right.
Right. Like
Yeah,
chances
some
are
of them
that.
will hang. Some of them don't mind. Some of them have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Or they're not that mobile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you have to work kind of
if
around
it's
it.
mold, they're going to have to be out of there typically.
Yeah. And if it's a fire, they have
Like
to be
soot,
out.
yeah.
Like they have to be out of there while you remediate that, right?
Well, the fire marshal probably
Come in and
condemn it and tell you
to get
nobody
out.
can be there until
Yeah.
it's done. Depends how big it is again.
Yeah, so that's another thing. Condo, fires, you have to really, a lot of them have firewalls, but the older ones, you have to kind of
Right.
pay attention to what you're doing, and you would come in and remediate all of that
Right.
as well, right?
Yeah, firewall's real. That claims cost is way higher when there's firewall.
Oh,
double walled.
for sure.
So, but that's something you have to make sure you're up to code on and you're replacing it proper.
Yeah.
Big problems if you
Yeah.
don't.
Do you have to get the fire marshal in to inspect your
City.
repair? The city has to come in and
Yeah.
when it's a fire.
Yeah, with city. Well, the fire marshal will come in and determine
Yeah.
what the cause is.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and how
Yeah.
much the fire for the newspaper and that. But then
Yeah.
the city normally comes in when you're putting it back together.
Oh, really, eh?
Well, permit. You need permit.
You need building permits and all of that stuff to put it back together. Gotcha. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of stuff that can happen in a condo. Now that we've freaked everybody out.
Yeah. I think
That's not true. You know what? When you live in a multi-residential building, you must expect that there are things that
sure.
that are going to happen that are outside what you can control. So all you can do is, like we talked about, when you go on vacation, make sure somebody's checking your unit.
Right.
There's the preventative measures that Mike talked about, when it comes to turning off your water or, making sure that, your smoke detectors and all of that is working, which condos do on a regular basis, but you make sure too, like just hit the little button and just give it a little beep, just check to make sure it's up and
Right.
running, right? Make sure your kitchen lines are checked and your ice maker is good and all of that stuff before you walk away from your unit.
And check your insurance, because I
this
think
is-
people say I'm a really good homeowner and I look after everything, but the person above doesn't, and it floods in. I have to likely call my insurance too, and people hate hearing that.
I
Why do
know.
I have to put in a
Right.
claim? I didn't do
Right.
anything. I did everything right. It's
Yeah.
like, well, the condo's not going to replace your couches
couches.
and your contents and all these
Yeah.
things. And people really, that's something a lot of people are not, you probably see it too.
Right.
They're like, they really don't understand that.
No,
Just
and
because they didn't cause it. It wasn't my fault. And
I
it's
know,
just like you still,
and that, I feel that's
you
where I
know,
always felt
it's-
super bad.
Yeah.
Is that that third unit, like that
Yeah.
that valve building where the valves would explode?
Yeah.
Well, I changed my valve and
know.
I did everything I was
I
supposed to
know.
do,
Yep.
and then 2 units up, well, they didn't bother, and boom.
or they're at the
and-
bottom and they get everything. We've
Well,
had ones where it's the same unit that
that's
is
true.
renovated and
Because of
gutted
the way the building's
over and over
stru-
again.
Oh my
And it's
gosh.
like these poor people.
That's rough.
It's the way that the building
Yeah.
is structured,
Yeah,
or
it's
you're in the
awful.
basement at the corner unit where you get the leaks from outside. and
finds a way.
inside. The path of least
Water finds a
resistance.
way.
Water
Yep.
always finds
Yeah,
a way.
that's rough.
That's Before we go, I just want to talk quickly to Mike about the upcoming event that CCI Grand River Chapter is having. Mike is... you are in charge. Well, Brad's in charge. Who's in charge? Brad or you?
There's 5 of us on the committee.
There's 5
or
of
6
us.
of us.
Teresa, are you in charge? Teresa's in charge.
Teresa does a lot of the work for us. We just look good.
It's the CCI Grand River Chapter Golf Tournament, and it's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big event.
Awesome.
And I've talked to Brad Wells on the podcast before. He was on a few weeks ago, and we talked about the golf tournament. So now let's talk to you about it. So I see you you're whizzing around in the cart, and you're yelling at people, telling them to move it, and you're like the marshal, right? And you're looking for yelling, where's so-and-so? I can't find. I'll never forget that. I was on the tee block, and up comes Mike in the cart, and you were just whipping through. Where's so-and-so? And I'm looking at you going, you're in my way. And you're like, where's so-and-so? I'm like, I don't know where the F so-and-so is, but you're in my way. And you're like, goodbye.
It was a little bit of a backup on a par 3 probably there, right? I think it was Casey driving actually that time.
I think it
was Casey, so it's her fault.
You were looking for Casey's husband. That's what it was.
I was looking for Ian.
Casey's husband.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm like, I don't know where the heck. How the heck do I know where Casey's at? You're in my way. I need to get my shot. Get out of my way.
I'm looking for who has beer in the back of their cart so we can have a beer. It was really hot last year, wasn't it?
It was hot last year.
Yeah.
It's a great fun day.
It is.
So anybody that's a CCI member that's listening and it still hasn't signed up yet, by all means get in there. And even if you're not a golfer, don't worry about it. Like we'll figure it out. Like you can drive the car. I had one, she took a couple of shots and she got tired of it.
Yeah.
And she just drove the cart.
Who cares?
And she,
that's the best part of the round.
Beer. Like
nobody cares about. And we've actually upscaled it. This year, there's a lot, there's breakfast, there's lunch on the course, and then there's dinner afterwards as well.
Let's talk a little bit about that because Superb Property Maintenance, whom I work for, has sponsored the breakfast. And then I was told it wasn't a sit down. I'm like, so what did I sponsor?
Box. It's a box. It's a box
idea.
Breakfast, correct?
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Can I put my logo on the box?
You probably could.
Can I put my logo on the box?
No.
Why?
Well, you can't.
I don't know that's an actual box.
Oh.
It's the golf tournament. You have some.
Okay, I know I'll have some.
What if she provides her own boxes?
If you provide your own boxes, you can.
Okay, so what do you mean by a box lunch? Let's talk about this quickly. What do you mean by the box breakfast?
So it's to go, just to keep things moving.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a good idea.
You don't want people hanging around there past the time and then they're 10 minutes later or right on time for their tee off.
You know what?
People, we want to keep it going
That's
because
what happened last year. I remember
a lot of inexperienced golfers, so they're
Right.
just hack and whack, right?
Right, but people were trying to get them down from the breakfast last year to
Right.
get into their carts, and the gentleman that was starting the tournament was like, okay, everybody, we're waiting for so-and-so.
Right.
And I remember, I don't know if it was you or Brad or somebody was like, where's so-and-so? Like, get these people down here. I don't
Right.
know, maybe it was Teresa. Somebody
Yeah.
was trying to cart people down. And that is inexperienced golfers, and
Right.
that's okay. We'll walk you through it, but just get your butt down to the cart when we tell you to get down to the cart.
Typically, a round of golf is between 4 and 4:30. Public golf, probably 4 hours, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Our tournament takes about 5 hours, sometimes a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's only a half hour, really, if you look at it, and it's sold
Yeah.
out. That's 2 on every tee off,
That's right.
where you typically only have 1 on a tee off when you're playing public
When you're
golf.
playing public
So
golf,
it's
yeah.
a pretty good go.
Yeah.
And we encourage
And it's
people
best
that
ball.
we encourage people
Yeah.
to grab a whole bunch of balls if they're not good golfers and
Yeah. But
and
you
just
always-
pick it up sometimes.
Yeah,
and
but you always get,
just
if
go to your ball and hit it.
Yeah, but sometimes it just it's a best ball anyway.
Right.
So people grab the there's always one golfer on the team. So there's always the one golfer
Right.
that is better than everybody else. That's
sure.
where you go and
For
people
sure.
drop their balls there
Yep.
and whatever. But to pack your patience that day because
Right.
if you are a golfer like you and I are, we're golfers and we tend to play rounds in public and we tend to
Right.
let's go. But in this case, you're not let's go.
We do have some-
Caesars and you're having a good day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great day. But we
Yeah.
do have some sandbaggers like Stefan Naspoli. He always stacks his team. And Brad and Mike,
Oh,
they
tell
always,
me about it.
Brad Wells and Mike
Stackers.
Mullen, they always stack their team
Stackers.
so that they come home with the hardware,
Yeah, I'll come home with bragging rights is what
Exactly,
they want.
yeah.
Yeah, they're not
Like
winning
they don't
anything.
have enough.
They're not winning anything that they don't have.
Tell us how you really feel.
Hey, I won the women's longest drive the first year. I did not win it last year, which ticked me right off. And I couldn't get closest to the
I've seen you hit the ball at Whistle Bear there. You were hitting the ball pretty good, eh?
Did I have my new Sims by then?
You did.
Yeah. That was my first year with my Sims. I could do no wrong. Now I have a little problem.
I think you just got them.
I probably just did. I really love my Sims. Anyway, okay.
Enough about golf. Come up June 1st.
CCI golf tournament June 1st. There is an agenda on the CCI Grand River website. So if you're interested in joining or interested in signing up a team, do it quick because we're almost sold out.
I think there's 5 or 6 foursomes left.
Okay.
Yeah,
and even if you're a single and are interested,
sure, we'll put you in with somebody.
Yeah, email because there could be a foursome that didn't have the foursome didn't sell out. So there could be a spot. So you could be coming in as a fourth for somebody. So if you enjoy the game and really want to come out for a fun day,
beautiful spot, Conestoga Golf Course with the river running through and the nice bridges
and the water. Yeah,
it's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, that damn water hole. I can't get my ball over.
It's just in your head, Mish. It's just in your head.
It's totally in my head. All right, Sara, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
You.
Really appreciate it.
Pleasure was all mine.
All right, thank you for listening to another great episode of the Canadian Condominium Institute CCI Grand River podcast. My name is Michelle. Thank you so much again. Tell your friends. The podcast is available across all major podcast platforms, including Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube at CCI Grand River Chapter. Until next time.